Lee Summit is your destination for big city vibes and small town charm.
Head to the downtown Lee Summit Farmers Market, where local meets fresh. Then grab a cup of coffee and discover a variety of shops and boutiques just around the corner. Continue the fun in downtown Lee Summit at a retro arcade bar. Discover your new beer at one of our 6 locally owned breweries. Cool off with some handcrafted cocktails at happy hour. End the night with live music and good company. Lee Summit, Missouri.
Hello, Lee Summit. Here's your flash briefing for the week of September 4th. City Council will meet for regular session Tuesday night at 6 in Council Chambers and City Hall. If you can't watch, quickly catch up on City Council meetings by subscribing to the Council Debrief newsletter, which breaks down 3 to 4 key agenda items. Subscribe at cityofls.net. Heads up drivers, beginning September 5th. For the Colburn Road Improvement Project, Northwest Colburn Road from 350 Highway to Douglas Street will be closed to through traffic until spring of 2025. For the Chipman Road Improvement Project, the new road connection between Northwest Ashurst Drive and View High Drive has been completed and will open. This connection provides access to the Edgewood Subdivision so that Northwest Edgewood Drive at Northwest Chipman Road can be closed as road construction is expanded on Northwest Chipman Road. Closure, detour, and project information can be found on our website at cityofls.net. Fall is just around the corner. Are you cleaning out your garage? Did you know there is no fee for Lee Summit residents to dispose of household hazardous waste at the Resource Recovery Park? A valid ID with the current city of residence is all you need. They are open Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m., no appointment required. And Saturday, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., appointments are required. Just call 550-1612. And a reminder, city offices are closed today, September 4th, for the holiday. Thanks for listening and have a great week.
I'm Assistant Chief Jim Eden.
And I'm Battalion Chief Ben Hicks.
And today we're at Lee Summit Fire Station 3. Fire Station 3 was part of the 2016 no tax increase general obligation bond for public safety initiatives. The station was built and occupied in August of 2020. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we've not been able to give tours or have an actual ribbon cutting. So we want to invite you in today to give you the opportunity to see what goes on within a Lee Summit Fire Department station.
Let's go take a tour. This is our admin side of the facility. We use this side mainly for offices. We have a lot of work during the day, whether it's training or doing reports or just generally taking care of the shift that we need to do. At this particular station, Station 3, we do have an assistant chief that works out of here. That person has their own office where they need to manage what's going on throughout the day with the shift and staffing, and as well as running calls out of here. The captain has their own office as well. What the captain does is at this specific station is in charge of both the fire truck that's here as well as the ambulance. And so with all those personnel responsibilities as well as running calls and reports, that's where they work out of. And generally for the rest of the crew, which is somewhere around 5 to 6 individuals, we have rooms to write reports, and we have additional training rooms and other rooms where people can work. Walking into our living area, I think it's important to recognize that we work 48-hour shifts. So in the evenings, after 5 o'clock, after work is done, we may have the opportunity to catch a game or something else as long as we're not running calls. And this gives us the opportunity to do that. When we go into our kitchen, I think this gives you a great reason to know why we go to the grocery store. When you see fire trucks at the grocery store, what we're doing. Also, for 2 days working for 48 hours, we buy all our meals at the grocery store, and then we come in here and cook, just like you guys do at home. So everybody has their own fridge on each shift, as well as their own pantry, and then we cook those meals here. Going into the sleeping side of things, we've got a couple different things that are significant. We have our own laundry room, which again is important when we're here for 48 hours. The opportunity to wash and clean our clothes and bedding is very important for hygiene. And walking into where our beds are, we keep the kind of sleeping quarters over on one side of the building. It gives us both easy access out to where our fire apparatus are, as well as kind of keeping it a little bit quieter for those people that have been up all night running calls. We have 11 bedrooms here at this station, and the reason we built it with so many bedrooms is we want to give ourselves as a city the opportunity to expand. So if we need to put another apparatus here or numerous other people working at this station, that's already in place as far as infrastructure goes, and we don't need to go back and try to make it bigger or better, and that's really important for us, especially because the old station was so small. Back out on the apparatus floor, we had doors facilitated as many places as possible, so that way when we're sleeping at night and a call comes out, we can make our way out fairly quickly to get out onto the truck if we need to and run a call. On the other side of the station, we kind of have other stuff that we may want to keep separated if we want to. Physical fitness is very important to us as firefighters. So in order to better ourselves and make sure we're as healthy as we can to do this job, we have our own gym facility here that we kind of go throughout the day when we can and get an opportunity to come in and work out. Our goal when we run calls, when we get back to the station after calls, our goal is to get ready to go back as soon as we can to run another call. So we have the opportunity or capability here to fill up our air tanks. You see firefighters wear the big air tanks on their backs and they use those in a fire. We can come back and fill those up and make sure that we're ready to go again when we're wanting to go run another call. We have our own workshop here. We work on a lot of our tools and making sure that everything's clean and operational, and this gives us the capability to do that, again, to make sure that we have everything we need and we're as capable as we can be running calls throughout the city. Cancer prevention is very important in the fire service right now. Because of that, we have an extractor machine, and what this does is gives us the capability when we come back from a fire, we can put our bunker gear into this machine and get all that really nasty crud off of our gear. Again, kind of getting back to that cancer prevention mode, allowing us to be as clean as we possibly can for the next call. And finally is our bunker gear room. We each have our own individual locker. This gives us the opportunity to store our gear when we're not here working in between shifts, as well as keep a clean extra set on here in case we do run a fire and we need to clean our current gear. Typically, this is where your day starts off at the fire station. You come in and get your gear and put it on wherever you're working that day, and then you end the same way, bring your stuff back to your locker to go home after working. This is Med 3. This ambulance just currently moved into the station from Station 7. Station 3, since we've had it built, has turned into one of our busiest stations in the city. Therefore, we wanted to provide the best care and the closest unit as we could. So we moved one of our ambulances up, and this became Med 3 for this particular instance. Out of this station, we also have Pumper 3. And that's a fire apparatus that they utilize to run the calls on this west end of the city. The last vehicle that you see is the chief's vehicle. We have 2 shift chiefs on shift every day, and they split the city. And this chief running out of this station typically covers the west and south area of the city, while our chief at Station 2 covers kind of that northeast section of our city, and they divide it up evenly.
Thank you for going on a tour with us today. If you have any other questions about the Lee Summit Fire Department, please go to our webpage at lsfire.net or follow us on Facebook at Lee Summit Fire Department.
Thanks for joining us on the tour.
Traditionally, we think as police officers, those responding to law enforcement needs within the community. But honestly, we are there to serve our citizens, and our citizens do go into crisis. They do have mental health crises, and we're being called to those scenes on a regular basis. In order to help serve those citizens better, we did initiate the Crisis Intervention Team Program. These are officers that are specially trained to de-escalate crisis situations. Recently, we've brought co-responders onto the scene, licensed qualified mental health professionals housed within our police department, and they respond with those officers directly to those scenes where a crisis is occurring so they can interact with that citizen and get them the help they need right there on that scene.
The co-responders are either a bachelor or master level in a behavioral health related field. They wear plain clothes, they don't carry weapons or anything like that.
I have a police radio that I listen to all day. Listen for, those key words: mental health, behavioral health, crisis.
There's a lot of officers that just call for me. I have my own radio number.
I also have the ability to self-dispatch to them and say 982 is en route.
Officers en route, 914, Armstrong.
So typically I arrive after they've made it safe. I'll make contact and get kind of the rundown, and then I just kind of jump right in.
I'm like, hey, my name's Allison. I'm a mental health professional. I'm here to help you. I'm not here to take you to jail or arrest you.
Sometimes all a person needs is a voice, someone neutral, someone outside that, can listen. I do a lot of safety planning, including family, their support network, who's close to you. If they're home alone, who can come over and hang out with you today? Can we lock away your sharps? Can we put up your meds? Do you need meds? Can we get you over to the urgent care to get you assessed for your medications? Some of them also are like, oh, I'm so glad you came. This made me feel so much better.
Our main goal as the co-responders is to, one, get people connected to the services that they need, and also divert from emergency rooms and jails.
And they almost get a different view of the police responding. That lets me know you care and the officers care.
Please come up, please. How can we help you?
My husband has...
In 2020, we had 722 mental health related calls for service. 2022, by that time, 1,479. These mental health related calls for service are increasing. How we're responding to that is increasing the number of crisis intervention team officers we have available, as well as the number of co-responders we have available to respond on these calls.
So what I think is important for the community to know about the co-responder program is that we're here, we exist. All you have to do when you call 911 is ask for us. You know, say, hey, I want a co-responder to respond to this crisis, and we'll go. I was really struggling about 8 years ago on my personal journey with mental health, and I met some amazing social workers and amazing programs that have helped me get to where I am today. I really couldn't see myself doing anything else. We want to help, and that's what we love to do.
So I had a client, we got a call, she had some suicidal ideations, and she really felt that she had nobody. And and getting to know her story and getting to know who comes around and sees you, well, then we found a support person and they responded immediately and we made a plan. I called back and checked on her in an hour, and then I checked on her in 2 hours. We were able to get her into the additional services to where she talks to someone every week or more. I just took a person that really just thought they had nobody and nobody would show up for them, and show them you do. And you'll be amazed who is in your corner if you just simply say, I need a little help.
It's time for a council member spotlight. Meet council member Andrew Felker.
Running for office was not necessarily something I had planned to do, but I thought of doing. My children and I used to make frequent trips inside City Hall during piano practice. There was something of a desire to say, okay, this seems like a neat thing to do, to be a part of that. I'd always wanted to be involved with the community. Before I ran for office, I tried to get involved with things relating to, to the community, Chamber of Commerce and other volunteer organizations. So being involved in the community was something I wanted to do. And when the opportunity came up, I thought, well, let's see what happens. And I said, well, I think this is something I'd like to do. I'd like to be able to be a part of the community, to provide my time and expertise. I thought I could be a contributing voice to the council, and it's been a learning experience ever since. My first thought of what do I want to accomplish, I want to make sure I'm representing what the people have elected me to do. Sometimes that means trying to find out what they want to have happen in a certain situation or when a certain matter comes up, and so you listen and you try to learn both from your constituents and from the people advocating for a certain course of action. And so then trying to just work through and reason to the best solution possible. When I think of what I enjoy doing, I just enjoy working with people. Just learning what's important to my neighbor down the street or someone in a neighborhood close by, that process of just hearing from them, even if they're complaining and they don't like what's happened, maybe we've already voted on something, the first reading or first step of the process, and they learn about it and they come to me and complain. I somewhat enjoy the process of dialoguing with them to both understand what they really want to accomplish, what they really would like to see happen, and also advocating sometimes for what we've already done and what maybe I might feel differently about that. So that communication, that opportunity to work with the constituent who has an issue, I find that an enjoyable experience. I also just enjoy trying to understand the process of the issues in front of us. So trying to get to the bottom of what is really going on here, and is this really the best solution? Are there things that we could do differently or do better? And that's my goal when I'm looking at a matter, is something that's being presented to council, is I'm going to take something of a skeptical view because I want to be able to, at the end of the day, make sure what we end up with is going to be the best thing for the city. When I think of my contributions to the council, I don't have any big initiative that I can say I was behind that and was the one who pushed it forward. But what I think I do, and I think I do well, is ask questions and try to understand what's important for the council to understand and what's important for, if my neighbor's listening in on a city council meeting, I want them to know that the question they would be asking if they were there is being asked by somebody so that they can get that answer. It is a lot of work and there's a lot of information. It is a city of 100,000 plus people and we have a lot going on. We have a great city staff, and so the work that is being done before I even open up my email or click on the link for the information that we're going to review for council, or when I show up, there's a lot of work that's gone into that. And so I respect that work, and if there's a surprise, it's probably the volume, just kind of confronting that, seeing that has been somewhat eye-opening, and I don't think that I would have understood that before, just how much work is being done on a day-to-day basis. Outside of work, my time and interests, usually it's going to be one of my child's activities. If I can find some time to go on a date with my wife, with Sarah, I'd love to spend time doing that. After that, being outdoors, again, it's often with family or friends. I'd like to be able to do that as much as I can. So, I love the idea of the people of Lee Summit being more involved in the community, and when I think, well, what can someone do to be more involved? By all means, call and ask your city council members, is there some way you can help? Because we might know of a committee or a council or a commission that needs a person to step in and be a contributor. So that's one way I think people can get involved. And then there are so many different ways to be involved in our community when it comes to volunteering for some wonderful nonprofit organizations that are serving, if you will, in the trenches with whatever's going on in our community, or those who are involved from a business perspective, involving yourself with the chamber or with the EDC. I think those are great ways just to get to know people and also to further understand ways that you can contribute. Volunteer for your homeowners association. Some might think that's not a glamorous thing, but that's one thing I did early on, and it's one way to get to know some important things. It helps you understand kind of what's going on behind the scenes, and you can be a part of, or a voice to that, and being able to provide some feedback for your very local community. So just get involved.
Welcome everyone. Sorry we had a closed session, so we're running a few minutes behind, but we'd like to get started. So would you please rise for the invocation and stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Heavenly Father, as we start our meeting, bless this council and remind us that we are here to make decisions that affect our city and our constituents. Guide us to be the leaders and stewards of our city and give us the strength to come together with our differences as we come to an agreement that best benefits our community. Bless those in attendance and keep us safe. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for God, visible with liberty and
Again, welcome everyone. I'm calling to order the City of Lee Summit regular session number 48. Can I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember DeMauro.
Here.
Councilmember Pryor. Here. Councilmember Felker.
Here.
Councilmember Lovell.
Here.
Councilmember Shields. Here. Councilmember Edson.
Here.
Councilmember Hodges.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
Here.
Mayor Baird.
Here. All right. First thing is the approval of the agenda. Can I get an approval? I have an approval. I have a motion to adopt the agenda by Councilmember Shields, a second by Councilmember Edson. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. Passes 9-0. Thank you, everyone. Next is the approval of the consent agenda. I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda by Councilmember DeMauro, seconded by Councilmember Edson. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. Passes 9-0. Very good. Next we have, I believe, Council Roundtable. Items of general interest. I realized I was so excited last night. I thought was Pooch Paddle Night, where you take your dog to Summit Waves, and it was 2 weeks before. So I missed Pooch Paddle Night, taking my dog to swim in the water, and we were pretty devastated, to be honest, because we were looking forward to it all weekend. So, Councilmember Lovell.
Can't match Pooch Paddle, but I did have the opportunity last week to tour Carmel, Indiana. I know I'd spoken with you about that, Mayor, but
That's right.
It's a city that's really well known for some really amazing planning and development and architecture and design that started some odd 30-something years ago. But it was just, it was remarkable just to see what they'd done with that city. And as we continue to think about the further developments that we have, like I just feel like we have this great opportunity to do some really unique, cool things. And I would be all for a field trip if that was ever a possibility. Thanks.
I've heard about it quite a few times, actually. Thank you. Councilmember Shields.
Thank you, Mayor. As you just pointed out, the pool closed a couple weekends ago, but this past weekend was the last weekend for the splash pads, and we took my son out to the one at Lee McKeegan, and it was wonderful. He had a great time splashing around, and just want to thank the city and the Parks Department for the great job they do out there.
Thank you. I could have done that. I could have taken the dog to the splash pad, too. You know what she does, though? When she goes to the dog park, she sits on the water, and I have to make her move so the other dogs can drink. So, yes, my southpaw dog. All right, Councilmember DeMauro.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't see Mr. Schaffler in the audience, but I wanted to note or call to the attention the municipal water leader. There's an article about Mr. Schaffler and our water utilities, and it's a great read. I read it, and I don't know if everybody has access to the municipal water leader, but it is great. It starts on page 21. Mark Schaffler. Thank you.
Maybe you could send that out, Mr. Denning, so we can see it. Thank you. Very good. Well, we have a proclamation tonight. Is there a sheet up there? Ms. Fowler O'Curry? Can you, no, I can pull it up on my computer. Do you have an extra one? Make them wait. You want me to read it off my computer? Let me pull it up on my computer. They have this stuff. Okay. Would you all come up forward and up front and meet me? Test. Is it working? Okay. Hi there. Come on up here with me. We'll face this way. All right. But we have the Daughters of the American Revolution, Marion Stables and Marcia Beck. And is Sharon not here? Sharon Pierce? You're Sharon. Okay. Well, let me read it and then I'll ask you to say a few words. All right? Here we go. Whereas the Constitution of the United States is the supreme law of the land that structures the government by defining the powers for each branch and setting forth a system of checks and balances. And whereas September 17th, 2023 marks the 236th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. And whereas the U.S. Constitution is the judicial guardian of our liberties and embodies the principles of limited government, dedicated by the rule of law over both the government and private persons. And whereas the Bill of Rights in the United States Constitution astutely outlines the uncompromised concept of freedom for all that includes freedom of speech, the right to assemble, the right to bear arms, and the freedom from tyranny. And whereas the first three words of the U.S. Constitution, we the people, affirms our forefathers' conviction that government should serve its citizens. For these reasons, we celebrate the anniversary of the writing of this honorable and sovereign document. By the virtue and authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Lee Summit, I do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week. Can I get a round of applause, please? And then would you state your names and say a few words?
I'm Sharon Paris. I'm the Vice Regent of Prairie Chapter DAR. I would like to thank the City of Lee Summit for our annual display of Constitution Week that we put out in the case out there. I'll be setting that up next Thursday, and that will be out there for a week. So thank you so much for your generosity.
I'm Marcia Beck. I'm the chapter regent of the Prairie Chapter, Daughters of the American Revolution, and I really appreciate Lee Summit's support. We meet locally, honor veterans, and we assist.
Would you mind taking a photo with me? Okay.
How would you like to be in the middle?
No. Okay, sure. I'm the taller one.
Yeah, right in the middle, right in front of you. There you go. Oh. That way they're trying to duck down behind you and not photobomb you. There we go. Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Well, we're going to go from proclamations to get into business. We have public hearings tonight. I'm going to close the regular session and open the public hearing in the matter of agenda item 5A. This is a preliminary development plan for Lakewood Pool parking expansion, 4140 Northeast Dick Howser Drive. Lakewood Property Owners Association is the applicant. Would all those wishing to speak to this matter please rise and to be sworn in by the city clerk? Very good. Does the applicant have a presentation? Yes.
All right, Mayor, council members, thank you for hearing our request tonight. I'm Mark Reed, the GM of Lakewood Property Owners Association. And in front of you, you'll see our request for our parking lot expansion at our East Lake swimming pool facility. Oops, sorry. And for those of you that don't live in Lakewood, the parking lot expansion was basically we're expanding an existing developer-built parking lot that was sized for its purpose back in the early 80s. We have much more usage with our new facility. Prior to this, we had a play park there where the parking lot is being expanded. So we've now moved that play park away from the intersection and put it in a other side of the facility, which opens up that area at that corner for the parking lot expansion, which is necessary because we agreed with the wisdom of taking parking off that street, making it a more safe intersection. And so now I have the need to bring the parking that was on the street back into the parking lot. That's what we're proposing. So that I'll defer to staff.
All right, thank you, sir.
Hi, Joshua Johnson, Director of Development Services. I'll begin by entering staff's list of exhibits 1 through 22 into the record.
Please enter 1 through 22 into the record.
Applicant mentioned this is an expansion of existing parking lot for really more than just a pool area. We've got a multi-use recreational lot here. Over the years, the demand for parking has increased, so that's the nature of the application. Site is zoned agricultural, obviously a lot of residential around it. It's in the middle of a Lakewood neighborhood. Site plan, there's underground detention proposed as a part of this to control stormwater runoff. At the Planning Commission, there was no public testimony either for or against. The Planning Commission, after hearing the testimony of staff and the applicant, rendered a unanimous recommendation of approval to the council. I think with that, I want to go over the modification. There is a modification to the parking lot setback off of Dick Howser Drive. That normally requires a 20-foot setback. The applicant has asked to take that down to 10, which is in line with the existing parking lot. Staff recommended to the Planning Commission and City Council to continue that existing setback, just to match up with the existing parking lot. The Planning Commission heard that and also rendered a recommendation to allow that modification to the application. And I think with that, I'm ready to answer questions from the council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions for applicant or staff? Yes, Councilmember Edson.
Thank you, Mayor. Josh, I saw in the staff letter that there was a neighborhood meeting, but there's nothing about the Planning Commission meeting in the public hearing in our packet. So I tried to go find that, and I couldn't find it. But there's also nothing about the neighborhood meeting. Do you have notes on that? Did anybody show up?
The applicant would probably be able to pull that up quicker than I can.
Oh, I didn't want to put Mark on the spot.
held the neighborhood meeting per the calendar of probably 20. Honest with you, notes, no notes about the project. Wanted to talk about the over.
Okay.
That wasn't part of the project. Everybody was favorable. On the utilities.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Mr. And I know I saw those a couple months ago and I couldn't find the neighborhood meeting notes, so thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I'm doing some landscape shopping because it's fall, and I actually knew what a crepe myrtle was when he said that. I don't think I knew that last week. I'm not seeing any further questions. Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor or in opposition to this application? Please come forward. All right, any additional questions from council? Would the applicant care to make further comment? All right, staff, do you want to make a further comment, Mr. Elam? No, you're good. Hearing no further testimony, I'm closing the public hearing and reopening the regular session. Is there any council discussion on this application? Yes, Councilmember Shields.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no issues with this application. It looks fine. My only real comment is one that I make periodically, which is I don't understand why this isn't just a purely administrative matter. They're expanding their own parking lot. I don't understand why this requires a preliminary development plan. I'm sure someone could give me a long explanation of why it does, but it just seems silly to me. So I'll support it, but I think they should just be able to do it.
Thank you. He thinks it's like adding on to your driveway, Mr. Dunning. Same type of premise. You wouldn't have to go through city council to add on to your driveway, would you?
No, not unless there were any waivers or anything out of the ordinary. If it was just standard addition of a driveway, it wouldn't trigger a preliminary development plan.
Mr. Johnson?
It's mainly because of the modification request.
Really?
Yeah.
If they hadn't had that modification, they probably wouldn't be here?
Yeah.
Really? Yeah.
I also think they should just be able to have a 10-foot setback without needing to go through multiple public meetings.
And I
with
should have
public hearing.
copy.
Yeah. Gotcha.
I'd be happy to have the discussion at some committee in the future, but thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Edson.
Councilmember Shields.
Can you speak in your microphone?
Oh, sorry. Do you want to send that to CEDC for discussion?
As I am not on the CEDC, nor am I the mayor pro tem, I guess I have no particular comment, but it is something I think would be great for us to revisit in the future.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'd be willing to talk about that. I agree with you. And I just want to say I'm fully in support of this. This is really going to help increase safety along there. Once they've made all those improvements, the parking, even though there's no parking signs everywhere around that corner, people park in the designated no parking area. So this will help keep the kids safe. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, hearing no further comments or discussion, Councilmember Edson, would you please read Bill number 23-170?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to advance to second reading Bill number 23-170, an ordinance approving a preliminary development plan for the Lakewood Pool parking expansion on land located at 4140 Northeast Dick Howser Drive, all in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 33, the Unified Development Ordinance of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Lee Summit, Missouri.
Thank you. We have a motion to move to second reading, Bill number 23-170 by Councilmember Edson, seconded by Councilmember Shields. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. Passes 9-0. So, thank you. I'm going to close the regular session again, and this time I'm going to open the public hearing in the matter of Raintree Village Community Improvement District. Does not say the exact LLC applicant name. So please, Mr. Bouchek, what's the applicant name?
There are technically multiple applicants because it's a petition signed by multiple property owners,
Okay,
so I
that's
did not
probably why,
include
yeah.
a single applicant.
Okay. But all those wishing to speak to this matter, please rise and be sworn in by the city clerk. Good. Mr. Bouchek, start us off.
Yes, I'll get us started. David Bushek, Chief Counsel of Economic Development and Planning. This is a public hearing that's required by state statute for the proposed formation of a community improvement district. You heard the conceptual presentation on this back in July of last year, and you will hear the full presentation tonight. We'll start with the developer's testimony, then I'll have some comments.
Very good. Go ahead, Councilmember Felker. Chime in real quick.
Thank you, Mayor. Just commenting that I will be recusing from my participation on this and voting due to a conflict of interest.
Thank you. Mr. Haney.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Jeff Haney with Haney Co. KC. I've been working with David Christie of Christie Development, his team for probably 18 to 24 months on this project. David's here this evening. Tim Spees also with Rouse Fretch. She's an attorney that's been helping us formulate this whole plan. And so I'm just going to go through a little bit of the history here. Project. David, which I think I can point. Yeah, David Christie purchased this property, I think in 2015, roughly. There's a Scooters coffee house there now, and then the city's new fire station is being built on a portion of it. Part of that, David also acquired the loan on the TDD that was in place. It's got the Raintree Village TDD, and it covered some of these improvements. Eventually, from this portion of it, David acquired more land. He goes as far just to the west of Arbor Ridge, a large chunk right along 150, and then I think about 12 or 13 months ago, purchased the remaining balance of this. So he's worked on this, had a lot of investment in it. Through this process, the city staff was very direct in telling us, hey, we really want to see a comprehensive development plan, conceptual plan, and the incentive request. And that's when we came in the end of June, I guess it might have been in July, when we had it. And we provided the Chapter 100 for the scenic development portion of the project, and then the CID. The scenic project's already underway. They had groundbreaking, I think, about a month or so ago, but this is the conceptual plan. Like I said, this is the scenic area that's under construction now. There's, conceptual ideas for commercial, and our plan is to add the CID to cover the commercial areas. This is still conceptual as far as the multifamily goes, but you'll see a little later exactly where the CID boundary is gonna. This is the Raintree Village that's just under construction on just the east of Arbor Ridge. Let's talk to Jordan Anderson, who's the developer there. Very happy with how things are going. They've had good dry weather. Had plenty of that, so they haven't been slowed down on their construction. So that's been a nice step, and that's not within the boundary of the CID, but I just wanted to bring that up. It's roughly a $50 million development. So what we're here tonight to discuss is adding that Raintree Village CID in the same area that the TDD covered as well. So we'll go over the boundary in a little bit. So CID itself would be used to pay for new construction of stormwater public improvements from the existing city-owned detention basin through the project down through at 150, and then also traffic signal here. So there's about $750,000 of new CID improvements, and then the original $2.3 million of the TDD. We also considered project costs of this. CID would pay first for the new improvements. Then if there's additional revenue, which we're hoping there will be, it will help the TDD also pay, and there'll be a cooperative agreement between those two entities. Primary developer and owner. And here's our district. Spent a lot of time trying to figure out exactly how to do this. You have to spend the dollars within the CID boundary. That's the blue portion of it. And this is the TDD, which goes further east. These brown improvements are the original TDD improvements. So we're expanding the district CID district to cover both of these. It's a 1% add-on sales tax for 27 years to help cover those costs back and forth. This is a drawing that David came some time ago. Technical drawing that's part of this the CID boundary. Has a drawing as far as that goes too. But what our plan is to hopefully, David Christie's got a number of projects in the works for commercial on the west end at this point, a number of good promising projects on the east end. But again, the whole idea is that we'll create some commercial development. We use this 1% CID to both improve the additional public improvements and help pay for the original TDD as well. That's about it. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, no, we'll do Mr. Bushek first and then we'll do questions.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Bushek, is the mic as close to you guys as
No,
it could
it
be?
needs to be over here. I was thinking of that when he was talking.
Because I've kind of struggled to hear people
Yeah.
tonight.
The better?
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
voice needs to go. As I said, this is a hearing for a proposed CID. The CID, I'll show you the boundaries in just a moment on the next visual. The proposal is to impose a 1 cent sales tax. District could last up to 27 years to reimburse the developer for the reimbursable project costs. So this page, this is our simple one-page summary that I've shown you in the past when we have incentive requests. The numbers are fairly straightforward. We don't have any of the complicated like tax abatement analysis like you've seen in the past. So the source of the reimbursement is a CID. This tool is basically an extra sales tax in the amount of 1%. That's it. There's no other components of this incentive request. The purpose is to reimburse the developer for public improvements, which consist entirely of stormwater improvements and street improvements. Estimated benefit to the developer is about $3 million. Total project costs are $65 million, and that's for the development of the entire site that would benefit from the public improvements that the Christie Development Associates entity is building either on their own or with their partners. And so the reimbursable rate, which is the number that we've used many times to compare the reimbursement benefit to the developer as a percentage of total project costs, is about 4.7%. I took a look at some of our other CIDs today. You're familiar with most recently what we've called our redevelopment CIDs, redeveloping existing shopping centers. And the average for those, I tallied up today, is about 21%. And then of the other CIDs that exist in the city over commercial areas, some of the newer shopping centers, for example, or other standalone CIDs, the reimbursement average is about 13%. With some of the larger shopping center CIDs, like Discovery Park, for example, being even a much smaller percent. So this 4.7% is at the lower end of what you've seen in the past, and it is in keeping with other CIDs that the City Council has approved in the past. Then the next visual, the map that was attached to the petition that the applicant just showed you, that was a survey. Surveys are kind of busy, so I asked our staff to prepare a simpler map. This is the map of the CID boundaries. There's technically just 5 property owners within the boundaries. The count is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 here. All of those parties have joined in this petition. And the boundaries meander because this is where the retail commercial is proposed to be developed in these areas that hasn't already started. And then the area over here, this is all right-of-way area. That's the city's right-of-way or MoDOT right-of-way. And as was explained by the applicant, this has an existing TDD over here. And some of the backstory, I'll provide a simple explanation. When we negotiated for the purchase of this lot, which is now being constructed as Fire Station number 5, construction's underway, we agreed as part of that real estate agreement to cooperate with an expansion of this TDD, with the idea being at that time back in 2021 that the Christie Development Company would be pursuing development over in this area. So the real estate contract said that if the city council, using its legislative authority, agrees to the cooperation to expand that TDD, then the city would participate in that process through a court process. The developer has instead decided to pursue a community improvement district as opposed to an expansion of the TDD, mainly so it can also fund the stormwater improvements. If this TDD were expanded, only transportation improvements could be funded. So they opted to form this new CID to fund new transportation improvements, new signal here, the prior transportation improvements over here, and then the new stormwater improvements here. So that's what this CID is proposed to fund. The total funding that is proposed is $750,000 of new improvements, consisting of $350,000 stormwater improvements in this area, and then $400,000 for the signal at Arbor Ridge Drive. I pointed to the wrong intersection, the signal down here. And then the remaining $2.3 million is potential reimbursement for these outstanding costs over here if that initial $750,000 reimbursement for the stormwater and the new signal is ultimately realized by the developer. And the last thing I'll mention is that the city will have a representative sitting on the 5-member CID board. Our own Betty Wertelman would be the representative if this is approved. That is in keeping with what we've done with other CIDs and TDDs in the past. We have a city representative sitting on the board to participate in those meetings and provide assistance as needed for the districts. That concludes my testimony.
Okay, thank you. Questions for staff or applicant? Councilmember Shields.
Mayor, so is this something that we have done before, to have a CID pay over to expenses incurred under a different TDD? It just sounds a little different than what I've seen before. And is that, because I thought that's what I saw on the developers' slides, is that what the proposal is that if they get all that $750 and they pay for the improvements they're talking about, then any excess revenue could go to pay for things that were already done under the TDD?
That's correct. The second part of what you just asked, that's correct. That's the proposal. And when we bring a cooperative agreement forward, it will provide for just that the CID reimburses first for the approved stormwater costs and the signal costs. And then if that is fully reimbursed to the developer over time, then the remainder of the life of the district could be used to reimburse the developer for these transportation improvements over here.
And those improvements have already been completed?
Yes, they have.
Okay.
So back to the first part of your question, I am pausing and looking at our list to see if we have some examples of that. I want to say yes, although I can't think of an example. I feel like the council's asked me this question in the past and I could think of something. I can't at the moment. But from a legal perspective, this is something that is allowed legally. There's no but-for test like we have with TIF, for example. And the legal analysis behind this would be, it's basically contract consideration, with the idea being that once the CID is formed, it has the legal ability to enter into contracts and provide reimbursement for public improvements. And even if those improvements have already been constructed, as long as the party that the CID enters into a contract with is providing consideration to the CID for the benefit of the CID, then it can reimburse those costs.
So what would the consideration be?
Yes, so good question. And this is just an example because we haven't gotten to the contract stage. But for example, the CID could contract with the developer, and the developer would promise to cause the construction of commercial development in the CID areas and to use good faith efforts to keep those commercial areas open for the benefit of the CID, for it to generate revenues to reimburse the eligible public improvements. So the consideration in that case would be CID is making reimbursements and the developers agreeing to undertake those obligations in furtherance of the CID's purposes. That's the legal answer.
And I don't know how to phrase this, but the city was already planning to cooperate if they wanted to expand the TDD, and this is sort of accomplishing the same thing, but by different means, more or less?
Precisely.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, I think those are all my questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Other questions? Staff or applicant? Okay. Is at this time the public comment time? So anybody that wants to speak for or against, we have Ms. Kelly Bride here. Please come forward.
Mayor, I also wanted to check to see if there were any exhibits that needed to be entered.
Exhibits, Mr. Bushek. Sorry, Ms. Bride, one second.
I'll get better at that part someday. I would like to enter into the record exhibits 1 through 6 that are in your meeting packet.
Please enter into the record Exhibits 1 through 6. Ms. Bride, sorry. Yes. You can point it down a little bit so it's. Hold on a second. Hold on, let's get our ducks in a row for you first, and then you can start.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay. Lee Summit is a highly desirable city on its own without having to give in to developers requesting for incentives. He's explained a little bit tonight about the why this is with the TDD now. I understand a little bit more, but on Exhibit 2, in the petition, it shows the $2,300,000 for reconfiguration of 150 Highway and Regatta, which benefits the city fire station being built. And since the fire station is in the process of being built right now, I guess I assumed the city had already budgeted for the highway reconstruction costs. And I'm wondering why the state of Missouri is not appropriating funds toward the alterations of its own state highway, or am I missing something there? The residents of Raintree, about 2,100 of us, as well as the Arbor Walk and the Stony Creek, already pay real estate, personal property, sales taxes, and I believe these taxes should be sufficient for public infrastructure without an additional 1% tax. The sales tax Lee Summit reaps alone from the nearby Walmart should be enough for your street infrastructure for the fire station. And also in the project is the $350,000 for the stormwater management of the Arbor Walk East project. As a resident of Raintree Lake, I can tell you that our small stormwater projects are looking at $1 million and more for the just managing the future stormwater that's coming down our way. So 350 doesn't really sound like a very big number. Lastly, the development is $65 million in a time period when commercial lending for multifamily is getting tougher to acquire. And I hope the next thing that I hear is not that they want TIF money too. Are the plans being shown tonight up to date? The exhibit shows 100 apartments and 34 duplexes, but when I talked to Scott Reddy, he indicated that he thought it was still the 320 apartments. So we're seeing 100 and the 34. I'd like clarification on that because 8 4-story buildings do not really fit into the neighborhood character, and the quality certainly won't be the standard that we see in those cute Brookside type Arbor Walk homes and townhomes. And looking at what's been approved lately, I guess I'm thinking we'll see the same low rate standards of the nearby Clover and Hive, which looks like a military barracks, and Whiteman actually looks nicer than that. So in closing, I hope that you will look at some higher standards for our city, and that this isn't exactly what the neighbors want in their city. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to come forward? Seeing none. That takes us back to council. Are there additional questions from council? Yes, Councilmember Pryor.
Thank you. Could some of her questions be addressed or answered? Because I had a couple of the same questions too. Just
You can, yeah, you can start, Mr. Bishek, and then Ms. Pryor, Councilmember Pryor will ask follow-up.
Right.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and answer what I can, and then some of them might be answerable. Might have the developer answer. On the first point that she raised, state funding for state roads, I can think of 2 things that are a partial response, I guess. One is, unfortunately, it's often the case that the state does not have sufficient funding for its own roads, and we've seen that in lots of instances throughout the city. Secondly, the roads, let me back up. The roads in question along MoDOT's right-of-way that are eligible for funding after the other costs are funded, all of these improvements were required to be constructed by the developer. So even though they're in the state system, some in the state system, some in the city system, those were imposed upon the developer when this project was built. And so it's not something that either the city or the state would have funded in that case. It's something that the developer was required to fund when this development occurred. So I think that's the answer to the first question that she raised. As to stormwater costs, we'll have the developer answer that one. The apartment plans and the number of units, my understanding is that application is still a work in progress. I think they're still working on the stormwater issues, dealing with the design for the stormwater flow over here. And as of right now, I believe there's an application on file, but the application for the apartments is not moving forward at this time. But again, we'd like to have the developer address that to the extent they can. I think those are the two other questions we'll have the developer answer.
Okay. Mr. Haney, you want to talk stormwater?
Sure. Thank you. David, you did a fine job explaining a lot of things that I did not explain quite well in some of the history, and I appreciate that very much. On the stormwater, our stormwater, she was really getting it through the site. So we're pulling a large box culvert, get it through the site. And I'm sure there are other issues. We've had our engineers estimate those costs, so we're pretty comfortable with that $350,000 number. We're still a work in progress, but David and his team and engineers have spent a lot of time trying to figure that out so that it's not causing any issues downstream. As for the plan, that plan is conceptual. That's the one conceptual plan we had submitted last July. It's a work in progress. Like I think there's a note on our plan about that. There's a variety of different things that could change on that. So that she's correct. The plan that's shown right now is probably different, just like you would expect almost any development over a year to kind of move and morph around a little bit. So when that happens, that an application, if it does go forward, would be coming through your planning commission, then eventually to all of you. I think on the original improvements, David, that's correct. The $2.3 million was spent a long time ago to make all those roadway improvements on 150 and surrounding that area. That's covered her questions.
Okay, if you could hold 1 second. Councilmember Pryor.
So as of right now, what kind of multifamily are you thinking? Where are you at right now?
It's a work in progress, depending on a couple things, how the stormwater works out, how much density there will be. Some of the buildings are taller. I think there's a mixture of things that could happen, and it is seriously a work in progress. So I know David's had lots of different options. Some were more along what was shown on this plan, but it definitely.
When you say David, are you talking about
David
Mr.
Christie?
Okay, yeah, because we have a Mr. Bushek that's named David too.
Yeah,
so it's a
sorry,
little
David
confusing.
Christie. Yeah, the developer.
Are they leaning, because 300 and 100 are vastly different.
I'd have to say, David, I don't know if you want to speak to that, but it's still just really a work in progress on how dense it could. 100, and there are different types of townhomes versus multifamily.
I can add one other piece of information that's relevant to the discussion tonight. So this is the public hearing just on the CID. And as I explained, the CID's purpose is to impose a sales tax, pay for public improvements. The petitioners are the 5 property owners within the boundaries of the district. Christie Development is the overall developer of the area. There's another company that's proposing the apartment project. And it could be, for example, that this apartment project never moves forward. The remainder of this commercial does move forward, and the CID still functions as we're discussing tonight. So the apartment developer, the eventual apartment owner is not one of the petitioners. And if that project never happens, the CID still functions as we've described tonight. And then Josh can speak to the current status of the apartment application if you want to hear about that. But strictly speaking, that's not part of the CID tonight.
Yeah, okay, I would like to hear just a little bit. I understand that it's not, but I just want to, yeah, thank you.
Josh Johnson, Director of Development Services. So our last submittal was April 25th. And at that time, we had 314 units across 8 buildings, 8 3-story buildings. So, and the reason we haven't had a response since then, I believe for the issues Mr. Haney discussed, and we had a lot of comments back about, hey, architecture, there's some vagueness about stormwater, and I think you can see some of that materializing here that's going to affect that application.
Thank you. And just to be clear, the stormwater is going to be draining. Can you explain all of that so I know that it's?
Stormwater that we're going to drain there's a city-owned detention basin here. Right now, it's just running across this site, in an open ditch. it's gonna be contained, come down and across and make this so that we can develop this area, then it'll come make a connection, go underneath 150 and go down. There's been a lot of discussion about how that affects downstream folks. You know, we spent a lot of time about making sure that the flow of the water, the speed of the water, the clarity of the water, that's what we're working with right now, trying to make everybody happy. We've had a lot of discussion about that.
And right now, it'll remain in the detention area, and it won't, will it be like controlled release and it won't drain?
This is the layman, I'm not an engineer, but essentially our duty, I believe, is to make sure it doesn't cause any more offload than it does right now. And that's what we're gonna, so it doesn't cause further issues downstream.
And they think that they have that figured out, I guess.
We're getting closer. There's a lot of different ways that could be done. And we're spending a lot of time, David spent a lot of time with his engineers and staff and so on to try and figure it out.
Okay, and just for clarification, if it does not get figured out, then the multifamily probably won't materialize into anything? Is that?
Probably safe to say if the stormwater issue is not resolved to the city's standards, then the property can't develop. So there's a couple scenarios here depending on all the variables we're talking about. The apartments may or may not be developed and the CID can still proceed. The stormwater improvements may or may not happen. The CID is still useful to reimburse the developer for transportation improvements, or in some other scenario, all of this development could happen and everything that they're requesting could become reimbursable. So there's a lot of variables that are still in play, which are, like I said, sort of outside the scope of the CID hearing tonight, but definitely relevant when it comes to the land use decisions that you'll be making in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Boshek, just to be clear, she's asking, is staff going to make sure that more water does not run off of this lot than it currently does at this point?
Yes, and this project and the stormwater flow will have to meet city code requirements, and that's something that our staff has been working with the applicant on for.
Thank you. Councilmember Lovell.
Thanks, Mayor. So I just recalling back, like we've seen a few things come through, like I think car wash that's been approved for the CID, gas station, maybe a convenience store, and a daycare. Then I was looking through the developer slides, and there are other intended uses in those spots. Like I saw some restaurants. We don't have any LOIs or anything that you're ready to announce or present right now, correct? Spaces, you would still have to come back before us, is that correct? I mean, we would still have a planning commission, PDP, this is the intended use. So if, showing a number of restaurants, and I guess just for clarity purpose, I want to make sure people know that like the CID is going in, there's still a lot of things that we'll have purview over as it materializes and comes before us later.
Yes, that's correct. Anything that has not gone through the rezoning and PDP process that needs to will still happen regardless of your decision on the CID.
Okay.
This is not pre-approval of any future development. That still needs to follow the normal process.
Okay. I think that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Any further comment from, or questions from council? Does the applicant care to make any further comment? Thank you. Hearing no further testimony, I'm going to close the public hearing and reopen the regular session. Is there any council discussion on this application? Member Shields.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'll be supporting this application. I think I wanted to say that Councilmember Pryor and myself held a town hall actually recently, and one comment that I heard from some of our Raintree constituents was, why isn't there more stuff down here? Why aren't there more restaurants? Why isn't there more places to shop? There's lots of folks down here that there's plenty of demand. There's plenty of people who want to. Why do we have to leave Lee Summit to go out? And so, something like this that, while I understand we aren't improving a PDP or any specific uses yet, that will help facilitate some more development down there, hopefully some more restaurants going in down there, I think will be really appreciated by a lot of folks in that area. So for that reason, I'll be supporting moving forward.
Thank you. Councilmember Pryor.
So this is tough. I'm undecided as of right now if I'm going to be supporting it or not moving forward. But it's just hard for me to impose another tax right now when everyone just got hit with property tax stuff and everything up the assessment. So it's hard for me to impose another tax on people right now. But I understand that it needs to, I mean, this is what's gonna hopefully prevent the investment and will hopefully prevent the water from, I don't know, it's tough. So, yeah. I'm undecided. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Other comments? I know this development has been in the works for quite some time, and the developer wanted to move forward with this a few years ago, and city staff, through some guidance from us, from at least me, said we'd really like to see a conceptual plan. And they put the brakes on this, and they put this together over the last few years, and they've been pretty deliberate. So I know that it's been a long work of progress, and I know that this corner has not developed for a long time. And now we have someone trying to develop it, and I think in a healthy way. I understand there's concerns about the multifamily, but you've also got some things on this corridor that everybody keeps requesting. I do understand that every product's not exactly what we may want, because I know some people want a Trader Joe's and everything else, but they're hard to get. So sometimes you got to take wins as they are. So I'll be supportive of it. Let's just read the ordinance and see where we are. Councilmember DeMoro, you get the honor of reading bill number 23-171.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to advance the second reading bill number 23-171, an ordinance approving the petition for establishment of the Raintree Village Community Improvement District.
All right, thank you. We have a motion to move to second reading, bill number 23-171 by Councilmember DeMoro, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. Thank you. Yep, all votes are in. Please record the vote. And 7 in favor, 1 against, 1 recusal. So goes to second reading. Thank you all. Next we have public comments. Ms. Fowler-Curry.
Besides the one from Ms. Bride, I have not received any other public
Okay,
comments.
thank you. Resolutions. Ms. Fowler-Curry, would you please read resolution 23-24?
Resolution number 23-24, a resolution approving the appointment of successor directors to the Board of Directors of the Raintree 150 Center Community Improvement District.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt resolution number 23-24 by Councilmember DeMoro, seconded by Councilmember Edson. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. It is approved 9-0. Thank you all. And then we go to proposed ordinances first reading. Councilmember Lovell, would you please read bill number 23-172?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to advance the second reading bill number 23-172, an ordinance approving acceptance of the 2023 Justice Assistance Grant in the amount of $10,952 and ratifying the mayor's execution of a memorandum of understanding between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and Jackson County, Missouri to provide the grant funds.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt bill number 23-172 by Councilmember Lovell, seconded by Councilmember Felker. Discussion? Yes, Councilmember DeMoro.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if Chief Forbes wants to take this question, but I was going through the whereases and reading how much money is the DOJ has put towards this, and the amount of money's flowing to the communities. And I guess my number one question, how is it decided who gets what?
Mayor and members of council, Travis Forbes, Chief of Police. The fiscal agent for this monies is the Jackson County Prosecutor's Office. they have a formulaic grant, process that they use to determine which jurisdictions get how much money. I couldn't tell you the exact elements of the formula. Some years, we don't qualify under the formula, but last year we did, so that's why we got the funding this year.
Well, I mean, and this is more comment. I realize now, now that you said you don't, it's the prosecutor's office that does this. Out of the $726,157, City of Lee Summit got 1.5%. Kansas City got 44%. And Jackson County Prosecutor's Office got 42%. So 1.5% for a city our size, and I'll just say publicly, I don't understand the formula either, but that's disheartening. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, Council Mayor, I'd be more than happy to ask for more information from the prosecutor's office. I know they focus on violent crime, which, I mean, it's great for Lee Summit that we don't have as much violent crime as other cities, so I think it skews more towards those cities, but past that, I couldn't tell you the exact formula, but I'd be happy to ask some questions.
But I was surprised it was just 1.5%. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chief. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. Passes 9-0. Thank you all. And then we have a proposed ordinance, second reading. This is a substitute bill number 23-163. Councilmember Felker, would you please read for adoption?
Mayor, I move for the adoption of substitute bill number 23-163, an ordinance amending chapter 33, Unified Development Ordinance of the Lee Summit Code of Ordinances, Article 7, Subdivisions, to allow for requirement of public infrastructure with the administrative approval of minor plats.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt substitute bill number 23-163 by Councilmember Felker, seconded by Councilmember Edson. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. Passes 9-0. Thank you. And then we go to committee reports. Councilmember Shields.
Thank you, Mayor. Finance and Budget Committee will be meeting tomorrow at 4 o'clock, and we'll be continuing our discussion of the reserve balance policy and hopefully bringing something to council for review very soon.
Thank you. Councilmember Edson.
Thank you, Mayor. We have a CEDC meeting next Wednesday, September 13th at 5 o'clock here, and we'll be discussing political signs and locations. So should be an interesting discussion. I just wanted to say that.
It's an interesting discussion every election season. It's a good time to be discussing it then, not in the middle of election season. All right, thank you. Councilmember DeMoro.
Mayor, the Public Works Committee will have a meeting on the 11th, Monday. Trying to remember what time, 4:30 p.m. Thought we had another meeting. Oh, the Legislative and Intergovernmental at 11:30 on Monday. So I'll be working overtime Monday. Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you. Council comments. Councilmember Pryor.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so I actually have a few questions, but one of my questions is, along Colburn Road, the utilities, it looks like they're getting moved right now, I guess, back a little bit. So my question is the developer paying for it, or who's paying for it, and how much does it cost? Just even if the developer's paying for it, if you know how much it is. Thank you.
I believe the activity you're looking at right now is those relocations occurring for the Colburn Road improvements. I don't think Discovery Park is yet in that phase of development activity where their moving utilities are beginning to break ground on the development plans that you've seen. So in this case, the utility is moving. It's a complicated answer because some parts of their system are moving at their expense. They're moving within right-of-way or they're moving within easements that we've acquired. And in certain cases where they're moving from a private utility easement back to a new private utility easement, in those cases, we're paying for that. And I apologize, I don't have the exact costs for those. But
That's
we do-
okay. I should have
We do
emailed
enter
you, but
into
I
an
didn't.
agreement with them for those relocations where the city participates in that expense.
So in a case like that, or even other roads, is it more cost effective just to move them, or would it be more cost effective, like how much, and I know you probably don't know the numbers right now, would it be extra to bury those utilities, or is that even ever an option? I know not there right now because this is already done, but is that an option in the future?
It is depending on the line. So if it's what we consider like a transmission line, so high voltage, higher lines, three-phase, those become extremely expensive to underground. And in fact, our Unified Development Ordinance doesn't require them to underground in new subdivision construction. If it's more on the distribution side, some of the other factors consider what are other attachments, what agreements do they have for other carriers or service providers that co-locate on their poles, and are there places for them to go as well? Are there other underground utilities in conflict, whether it could be a sewer line, a water line, storm sewer lines? Those all have to do with us trying to manage that very limited space along the corridor, and those can drive up some of the expenses too. But generally, what we see is a new road, new construction in a greenfield where space isn't an expensive constraint, they will go underground. That's why you see in all new subdivisions, all those utilities are underground. It's just as cost effective and long-term life cycle of those utilities, it's cheaper to go underground in those cases. But when you're retrofitting existing areas and land is a premium, that's what drives those costs up to go underground.
I would just, and I know I've said it before, I would just like to see in the main areas for us to explore that option at least. It would look so much nicer. And then my other question is, okay, so, and I know this really doesn't have a lot to do with the city of, have anything really to do with the city of Lee Summit, but it was brought to my attention that Evergy, with the new energy plans, some parts of the state, most every part of the state, they're able to opt out of the new energy plans that they are going to be proposing, I guess, as of October 1st. For whatever reason, the Kansas City area and the Kansas City metro area and Kansas City are not able to opt out. I was wondering can we have like an Evergy representative come and explain the plans before they go in effect? Just kind of explain why we're not allowed to opt out and other parts of the state are allowed to opt out. And I know Evergy doesn't cover the entire state, and if they could just kind of add some clarity, because I think quite a few of us are getting questions. I know I've gotten a few questions about the plans. So I didn't know if, just for the public knowledge, because it's hard to, if somebody could just explain, if some representative from Evergy could explain it.
Yeah, we have a government affairs person at Evergy that we could reach out to, and I could work with Mayor Baird on finding a time to have them come in and explain.
Perfect. That way I can reference people to their explanation or to that video versus the website that a lot of people are having trouble with. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Lovell.
Thanks, Mayor. Kind of piggybacking off of that, like I know we've had conversations about utilities and burying power lines and extremely expensive or whatever. I do think, like, again, kind of going back to, that was one of the requirements in Carmel, like when they had that planning years ago, was like, hey, we're going to bury all power lines. And understanding those costs and then understanding what levers you can pull as a city to help offset those costs. And I guess just to further that comment, like, we're going to be in a like an economic environment right now where it is going to be tougher to get stuff out of the ground, and we'll have to, as a body, decide, what levers we want to pull to be able to continue development, and that will include incentives. And I've gone back and forth on my opinion on incentives, how they've worked, how they don't work. I think, the best thing that we can do is, like, if we want to continue moving forward, understanding that those things may be necessary, we have great due diligence from our staff and team to truly understand those costs and what the developer is recovering. So it's a fully transparent process. But then I would say, as a body, and again, this is just something I've heard from others up here, is like, we have the opportunity to demand more from a design perspective, and materials and how we want things to look and some of the things that we're looking for there. So, when we use these mechanisms, I don't see anything wrong with us really starting to think about, how those buildings look and the materials they use and that they last longer. And what you end up is you end up with buildings that last longer, that maintain their integrity and beauty over time. And that might mean us as a body, you know, having to use more levers or understand those. So anyway, I guess I'm kind of rambling now, but I just was really taken aback by what Carmel was able to do and seeing how we're growing this city. Like, I would love to see us demand more from the materials and design and architecture, because I think we have a really good opportunity to do great work for this city, far-reaching beyond our terms here and our lives here with all the land that's coming on board. So anyway, that's my rant. Thanks, Mayor.
No, it's a good rant, because we also have a Cultural Arts Commission. I really hope that they will take on some broader picture conversations and try to add to what you're talking about, because you're talking about the overall beautification of the city. And we need to hear from citizens as well, not just, I mean, we pay attention to these things because we're up here making these decisions, and they're not always high profile decisions. But we need to shine a light on maybe some ways that we can change the aesthetics or the streetscape and other things. And also maybe take it through committees, you know, ideas and such as well. Councilmember Edson, you want to add to that?
Yes, actually, I do. Brought up the Beautification Commission. I had somebody recently ask me about Discovery Park and if we were requiring them to do like native plants. You know, what kind of grasses are we requiring? And I was like, I don't know, grass, you know. And I was telling her about the Beautification Commission. So having them even dive into some of those things, yeah, I think that'd be a great idea.
So one thing, a few years ago, when I became mayor, I asked staff for do we have a kind of a plan for beautification? And I don't remember who gave it to me, but we actually have a plan, clear back, that was worked on back in 2016. And it's not something that has been followed in any manner. And I really think it's time to dig that out and have these kind of conversations, because we have this new commission that's reorganized, as well as, I think, a council that is willing to take on these kind of conversations. They're not not always the most popular conversations, though, because you're talking about forcing developers to put in certain plants and such, and it gets a little dicey there. They don't like to be told to put in a 3-inch tree over a 2-inch tree. Is that correct? I mean, it all costs money, but I'm willing to have these conversations because I think it makes a difference. Yeah, I think it makes a huge difference. I will say, just to add on to it, when you talk about overhead power lines, coming from my real estate background, the best subdivisions, you don't notice the overhead power lines because of the tremendous landscaping that they do. Think about Woodland Shores. It's such a grand entrance. You don't ever notice these huge power lines right over the entrance, because your eye is taken to the gated entry, pretend gated, it's not really gated, but gated entry and beautiful landscaping. And I think those things make a difference. They add to, yes, we need to bury some power lines, but we also can add to the overall beauty of the city. And if we have ideas, I'm game. Councilmember Pryor?
Thank you. I just kind of wanted to circle back around. I agree with Councilmember Lovell. I think it's been brought to my attention quite a few times recently that there are some apartment complexes in Lee Summit that were once marketed as luxury apartments that I personally would not want my children living in, would not want anyone in my family living in. So I do think it's important that we demand, as a city, as a council, that the apartments that come before us as luxury apartments are going to look nice in 10, 15, 20 years and still going to be livable and still going to be a luxury apartment. So yeah, I would definitely agree with Councilmember Lovell. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Staff roundtable.
Thank you, Mayor. I have 3 things to share with you. Staff's been advised by Jackson County Assessment Department that they will be providing our final assessed valuation data later than normal this year. That affects our ability to turn around and set our levies. We expect to receive the final assessed valuations. When I say final, it's final up to a point because we know there's still so many appeals that are in process, but they're trying to get us the best data they can, given how many appeals that have gone through. So we're set to receive that information on September 11th. That puts us in a time crunch in order to hold a public hearing to establish the levy rates, which it will occur on September 19th. What I'm sharing with you is we already advertised for the public hearing with levy information based on data we had from the county in July. It is likely those numbers will change. I will say they will change based on the information that we will be receiving from Jackson County on September 11th. So I wanted to make that transparent and help you all understand that and the public understand that when we get to the public hearing, the numbers will be different because we've received updated valuation data from the county. With us receiving that information so late, we have the public hearing advertised for September 19th, and we would like to have the ordinance reading establishing the levy twice that evening because we need to follow the process to get with the state auditor's office in both Jackson and Cass County in order to establish the levy by the October 1st deadline. So it's a little bit messy, but we'll get through it, and that's kind of what it looks like going forward from a timing perspective. And I think the other thing, I think I hit all my points on that. So I'd pause there, see if there's questions about our approach to having the levy determined.
I think I can speak for us all when I say that we're concerned about those numbers and their accuracy and the fact that they haven't updated us in a while. And now they're just going to drop it on our lap right before we have to make a decision, or the very night that basically we have to make a decision is a little frustrating. I know it's more frustrating for you because you guys do this all day, every day, but we wish we could help you. But
okay,
we'll make a decision based on the information that you give us and the options you give us, and we just wish that this had been a more transparent process, I guess, along the way.
Okay. Some better news then. We have another. So Mr. Schaffler was mentioned. Thank you, Councilmember DeMoro, in the Water Leadership magazine. I did get that sent to all of you. Another employee to highlight, Kara Starlin, who works in our Public Works Department, has been recognized as the Floodplain Manager of the Year by the Missouri Floodplain and Stormwater Managers Association. So that's a well-deserved recognition for Kara Starlin with regard to her work. And then lastly, Friday, September 15th, we're already starting in on our snow rodeo and our snow training. So on Friday, September 15th, we have celebrity guest driver opportunities if any of you are interested in going through the obstacle course, I'll call it, with our snow equipment. That's being held out at our Public Works Maintenance Facility. It used to be held out at the airport. We have new training opportunities where you can see what it takes to back in to get salt and all the things that the operators do out there when they go out to plow snow. So if you're interested, please let us know. We can get you scheduled for guest driving through the course. And then we do have a luncheon over the lunch hour out there, so you're more than welcome and invited to attend that as well. And that's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you all for your work. Thank you to the council. I'm going to close this meeting at, what time is it? 7:25.